When you enter this space with me, leave behind haste, fears, and the need to understand everything rationally. Here, I don't speak to your restless mind. I speak to the silent core of your being, to the part of you that has always known there is something greater than what the eyes can see. Listen with your spirit, because the truth I will tell you does not bow to the physical world. It transcends it. It governs it. There is a law that governs all movements of life, a law that no man can break because it is what sustains the very fact of existence. This law states that everything, absolutely everything, is a consequence of the inner state you choose to inhabit. Before something appears in the visible world, it has already been completed within someone. Before any external change, there was a silent, intimate, unshakable change in spirit. And that is why so few truly transform their lives, because they look for in the effects what only exists in the causes. The world lives distracted. It believes that high vibration is a smile, forced optimism, pretty phrases glued to the wall. But I tell you, high vibration has nothing to do with appearance. High vibration is inner authority. It is the silent certainty of one who knows that the visible has no power over anything. It is the state of one who has discovered that imagination is the only reality, and that everything that happens outside is just a delayed reflection of what was assumed within. One who vibrates high is not impressed by chaos, does not cling to circumstances, does not bow to fear, because they have understood that nothing, absolutely nothing, can contradict the state they sustain with conviction. You came here seeking 3 signs, but these signs are not magical effects, nor extraordinary manifestations that attract crowds. They are hidden signs, signs that only appear to those who have already broken free from the old habit of reacting to the world. Signs that emerge when the spirit finally accepts its inheritance, that of a creator, not a victim, that of a cause, not a consequence. And before revealing them, you need to understand something many go their entire lives without realizing. Vibration is not energy you try to raise. Vibration is an identity you assume. It is the inner place from where you think, feel, and observe the world. When this identity changes, everything changes. When it expands, everything rises. When it aligns with what is true, the world has no choice. It bends. Therefore, listen to me with complete presence. Do not seek to understand, just allow yourself to remember. For what I am about to reveal is not new. It is as ancient as the very breath of creation. It is the secret that transforms ordinary men into masters of themselves. It is what differentiates those who shine effortlessly from those who spend their lives trying to appear strong. Prepare yourself, because from now on, every word is meant to reactivate within you the awareness of who you have always been. The one who creates, the one who commands, the one who vibrates so high that reality responds as a faithful echo of what they sustain within themselves. The first sign of someone who possesses the highest vibration on the planet is so silent that the common man would never recognize it. They look outward, see chaos, and react as they have learned their entire lives with fear, despair, urgency. But one who vibrates high does not move according to what happens around them. Before any action, they maintain an inner stillness that the world confuses with indifference, but which in truth is mastery. It is not apathy, it is authority. They know that every circumstance that presents itself has already been concluded much earlier in the invisible. And because they know this, they do not try to correct what they see. They merely return to the state they chose, like one returning to the center of an invisible temple only they know. This stillness is not natural to the common man. It does not arise spontaneously. It is built, assumed, protected like a treasure. It is a continuous decision not to be swept away by the storm, even when the wind howls. One who vibrates high observes situations that provoke others, but within themselves remains intact, like a rock surrounded by waves. They see negative news, financial crises, others' judgment, a door closing, but none of this awakens a panic instinct in them. They do not make hasty decisions, do not try to force paths, do not beg for signs. They return inward, to the state they chose before any event, and they sustain the conviction the world does not yet perceive. Scripture says, "In quietness and in trust shall be your strength." It is not in haste, not in despair, not in the frantic attempt to control reality. It is in stillness, this inner immobility that does not depend on the external scene. One who vibrates high understands that the external world is just a delayed echo. So, if the echo does not please them, they do not fight with the sound. They change the source. And the source is always the inner state. Therefore, when confronted by problems, they do not react like one trying to put out fires. They respond like one who knows the fire only exists because there was a spark within. They extinguish the spark, and the world adjusts. Most people try to find peace when the situation improves, but the person of high vibration does the opposite. They find peace first, and because of that, the situation improves. This inversion is the secret. The common man is governed by the senses. The awakened one governs the senses with what they have decided to feel. While some wait for the world to give them reasons to trust, the other creates reasons within themselves, and the world ultimately obeys. This is not mysticism, it is law. Physical reality has no will of its own. It follows the mold you sustain in the invisible with intensity and persistence. When this sign awakens in someone, their demeanor changes. They walk around with a serenity that bothers those who live in imbalance. They speak slowly, look with depth, breathe with awareness. They do not act out of urgency, but out of inner direction. When they need to decide, they decide. When they need to wait, they wait. And all this without anxiety, without the tremor that dominates most. Their stillness is so profound it seems supernatural. And it is precisely this stillness that alters the events around them. When they remain firm within, the world begins to realign situations, people and circumstances to harmonize with the state they sustain. This is the true power, not the power to manipulate the external, but to master the internal to the point where the external has no choice. When you achieve this stillness, this firmness that does not depend on what you see, the world will begin to treat you differently. Doors that once closed will begin to open. Problems that seemed impossible will begin to dissolve. People who once provoked you will lose their power over you. Because the world does not respond to your effort, it responds to your state. And one who can remain serene in the midst of chaos no longer vibrates like others. They vibrate above. They vibrate at the level of the cause, not the effect. They vibrate where everything begins and where everything obeys. The second sign of someone who possesses the highest vibration on the planet is not in their words, nor in their outward attitudes, but in the way they interpret life itself. While the common man looks at events and classifies them as good or bad, one who vibrates high sees everything as a message, direction, and confirmation. They do not live reacting, they live deciphering. Every situation, every encounter, every delay, every apparent coincidence gains for them a symbolic depth that the superficial world cannot perceive. They read life as one reads a sacred text, full of metaphors that speak directly to the state they have already decided to inhabit. When something unexpected happens, they do not cast themselves as a victim, nor do they enter the mental game of asking, why? The common mind wants explanations. Elevated consciousness wants perception. The common man says, this shouldn't have happened. One who vibrates high says, what does this reveal about the state I am sustaining? They do not look for fault, do not look for culprits, do not look for justifications. They seek internal coherence. They understand that the physical world is merely the projection of the imagined world, and therefore every event brings, hidden, a confirmation of something happening within their own interior. And because they live in this symbolic posture, they begin to perceive synchronicities that go unnoticed by hurried eyes. Small encounters gain meaning. Random words sound like answers. Obstacles transform into perfect detours. Paths that seemed long mysteriously shorten. They begin to feel that everything around them is conversing with them, and it is. For when someone vibrates high, their frequency creates a field so stable that reality responds with alignments that seem like miracles to those who do not know the law. They do not need to convince themselves that everything has a purpose. They see the purpose, not because life became easier, but because their perception elevated. They see the invisible behind the visible. They read the spiritual meaning behind the physical movement. And this profound reading does not depend on favorable circumstances. It appears precisely in difficult moments when the common world is busy complaining, doubting, or despairing. One who vibrates high, on the contrary, observes the same scenario and silently says, this is moving me toward where I already am. They do not see delay, they see alignment. They do not see loss, they see a change of level. They do not see failure, they see adjustment. This sign is so powerful because it changes one's relationship with life. They cease to be commanded by events and begin to command them through the interpretation they choose to sustain. Scripture says, to the pure, all things are pure. In other words, you can only see in the world what is vibrating within you. Therefore, when the vibration is high, one's entire life converts into confirmation. Everything becomes language. Everything becomes a symbol. Everything becomes an answer. And thus, while the common man passes unnoticed through their own existence, elevated consciousness walks as one walking inside a living temple. Every detail is a reminder of what they have decided to be. Every event is part of the internal logic of their assumed state, and that is why reality, instead of resisting, organizes itself in their favor. For when someone reads the world with depth, it is because they have already transcended the level where events seem random. Nothing is accidental anymore. Nothing is confusing anymore. Everything fits together, because one who vibrates high not only lives, they understand. And the world faced with such understanding has no choice but to align itself. The third sign of someone who possesses the highest vibration on the planet is the most hidden, the most misunderstood, and the most powerful. It does not appear in the eyes, is not shown in speech, does not depend on behavior. It reveals itself in the silent identity the person chooses to carry. While most live waiting for external proof to then believe, one who vibrates high does the opposite. They believe first, feel first, assume first, and let the world catch up later. They do not seek evidence, they become the evidence. This is the point that divides conscious creators from passive observers. The common man lives in an endless cycle. They want to change, but cannot sustain the new state because they constantly look at what is. They want prosperity but feel poor. They want love but feel rejected. They want healing but feel sick. Their entire identity is tied to the visible, and that is why their vibration fluctuates. But one who vibrates high breaks this prison. They decide to live as one who already is what they wish to be. They assume the role before the play begins. They wear the identity before the world delivers confirmation. They move, speak, act, and think as one who already possesses what they seek, even when nothing around confirms this state. And it is precisely for this reason that everything around begins to confirm it. Scripture says, "Call into existence things that do not exist as if they already existed." It is not a figure of speech. It is instruction. It is law. And one who vibrates high follows this law with precision. They are not trying to manifest something. They are embodying that something. They do not do visualizations hoping they will work. They visualize because this is the life they have already accepted as their own. They do not pretend. They do not force. They do not imagine with despair. They imagine with ownership. They feel like the owner. They enter the state and remain in it, and this remaining changes everything. For physical reality does not bend to desire. It bends to the state. And when someone lives like this, they inevitably begin to act differently, not because they are trying to change life, but because their identity has changed. Their speech has a different firmness. Their steps have a different intention. Their gaze carries a different certainty. They stop insisting, stop seeking proof, stop trying to convince others, because the conviction is already complete within them. And a complete conviction is irresistible. The entire world reorganizes itself to reflect this inner strength. This sign is so powerful that from a distance, some confuse it with arrogance. But it is not arrogance. It is awareness. It is the profound humility of someone who has recognized their own power and decided to use it with respect, precision, and silence. One who vibrates high does not need to announce anything. Their state speaks for them. Their energetic field vibrates before any word. Their demeanor declares to the universe, "I already am." And the universe, obedient to the law, responds, "Then it is so." When this sign awakens in you, life begins to take improbable paths. People appear out of nowhere, opportunities emerge as if they had been planned. Most call this luck, fate, or coincidence. But you will know the truth. It is merely the inevitable reflection of the identity you sustained when no one saw, when nothing indicated it, when everything seemed contrary. The highest vibration is not emotion. It is not enthusiasm. It is not optimism. It is total identification with what you chose to be, even before proof. And when you identify with the desired state so completely that it becomes your inner home, reality has no choice. It obeys, it mirrors, it confirms. Because the world can only show what you have already become. Now that these three signs have been revealed, understand something with absolute seriousness. None of this was said for you to admire those who vibrate high. It was said for you to remember that this already exists within you. These signs are not spiritual privileges granted to a few. They are natural consequences of someone who decided to stop living in the state of reaction and began to live in the state of creation. You did not come into the world to be swept away by circumstances. You came to govern them from the silence of your imagination, where everything truly begins. To quiet oneself before chaos, to read life as a symbol, and to live as one who already is. These three signs are not behaviors you need to copy. They are spontaneous expressions of an elevated identity. An identity you can assume not now supper, without proof, without permission, without conditions. For what makes a creator is not what they momentarily feel, but the state they choose to sustain when no one is looking. Therefore, from this instant, abandon the old habit of begging for external changes. Stop asking the world to treat you better, for doors to open, for circumstances to change first. This is living as a consequence, and you were born to be a cause. Reality is not your enemy, nor your judge. It is merely the precise mirror of the state you decide to inhabit. If the reflection does not please you, do not attack the mirror. Change the inner face. Assume stillness. Assume a profound reading of life. Assume the identity of what you wish to be, and sustain this with conviction, with firmness, with silent authority. Let the world catch up to you. Let matter bend. Let circumstances reorganize themselves. They always obey. Always. Walk now with the remembrance that nothing out there has power over you. Nothing can limit what you decide to be. Nothing can prevent the manifestation of the state you sustain as truth. Everything already is. Everything is already within. And when the inside changes, the outside kneels.